This week, we're coming to you from Lagos, Nigeria, where CGTN and Channels Television co-produce a special program on China-Nigeria Economic Cooperation. Now, this year marks the start of China's 15th five-year plan, with a focus shifting from rapid growth to high-quality development driven by innovation, advanced manufacturing, and green technology.
At the same time, Nigeria is pursuing Agenda 2050, an ambitious roadmap to become a high-income, industrialized nation through economic diversification and sustained growth.
Cooperation between the two countries is moving beyond traditional construction projects towards building an industrial backbone, supporting manufacturing, skills development, and energy security.
And at the center of it all is people-focused development, creating jobs, strengthening food systems, and equipping a new generation with technical skills.
And as the two countries mark 55 years of diplomatic ties, this evolving strategic partnership could offer a new model for shared prosperity.
So, what does this alignment really mean for industry, for innovation, and for the future of China-Nigeria cooperation?
And how do China's 15th five-year plan and Nigeria's Agenda 2050 align to deepen stronger ties between the two countries? I'm Beatrice Marshall from CGTN.
And I'm Ini John Mekwa from Channels Television. Welcome to this special program on China-Nigeria Economic Cooperation.
Well, joining us now to unpack how China and Nigeria are making strides towards modernization from Guangzhou, Diana Chen, Chairperson and CEO of Choice International Group. In Lijiang, Professor Liu Baocheng, Dean Center for International Business Ethics at the University of International Business and Economics. And with us here in studio, George Onafowokan, Managing Director and CEO, Coleman Wires and Cables, and Ikena Emewu, Editor-in-Chief, Africa-China Economic Magazine. Welcome to the program, and thank you all very much for joining us in this discussion.
I'll bring it to Mr. Onafowokan. For you, operating in the real world, since you're in the real sector, between Nigeria and China, how much progress has been made, in this cooperation, especially when we look at industrializing Nigeria?
I'll say, from the perspective of manufacturing, there's been a lot of gains. Maybe initial reactions were fair, being defensive, but I think the years have passed where that has been taken over by more of collaboration. Now, what we've seen, the difference is we've seen different types of zones, from some of the free trade zones, from some of the collective or manufacturing sectors where there have been clusters of Chinese firms coming into Nigeria. What we've seen differential over the years is that there's been a large scale of Chinese firms coming into the play, but also there have been large scale of Chinese manufacturing companies coming into play to assist or to create businesses in collaboration with Nigerians, being able to, if you're talking about Dangote cement, you were talking about some of the other refineries that have had to use Chinese technology, manufacturing know-how to actually implement these projects in Nigeria. For the long term and the long run, is what we need to see is that the collaboration should move away from just technology, manufacturing capacity to transfer. And that is where we see it moving a bit more into, rather than the old way of doing things where the Chinese companies come as a cluster and stay as a cluster. What we need to see differential is that the cluster should decluster, and the manufacturing hub should not be dependent on one hub place. And I think for us as manufacturers and as Nigerians, we want to see the collaboration look like a one. It's the same way which is the road belt. It's about collaboration.
So, but George, to to industrialize, you need the manufacturing.
Correct.
Right. Does Nigeria, though, have that manufacturing base where it can leverage from China's change of policy?
Where Nigeria needs to benefit from China is, I've been going to China for 20 years of my life here. And I've seen the changes over the last 20 years in terms of industrialization. And I look at it, for me, China has been a place where I call it an inspiration. Mm-hmm. You cannot go from one year to the other to look at the road that you saw and the road you see the next time. You cannot go and say the technology you saw yesterday and the technology today. I'll say 70 to 80% of our factories, my factory, which is the biggest in the continent today, is based on a lot of it on Chinese technology. And Chinese technology over the last 20 years has evolved. Now, what you see now is that the technology is a lot better. The know-how is a lot better. We're being able to transfer those machinery and bring it into Nigeria and be able to actually find that we're able to do it a lot better, a lot more efficient. So we're moving away from where we believe that it's only in Europe you can get the best machinery. It's only the US you can get the best machinery. I can beat my chest and I'll tell you, you'll find a rated par engineering manufacturing company in China that will be at the same par with any of those companies anywhere in the world today. And you're actually confident of what you're delivering. So you get the long term of those machinery. Now, the thing about it, now that we're able to get the machinery out of China and being able to bring it into Nigeria or into Africa, what needs to change is that we need to start looking forward to added value. You know, Africa must move away from the source. You know, 40% of the world's copper in the world now go to China. Well, China sells you back a lot of added value. Mm-hmm. Now, Africa is the second biggest reserve of copper in the world. Right. And you ask, how many of those processes are added value? Mm-hmm. So it's the added value, I believe now, that where Africa and Nigeria needs to see collaboration so that when you're getting the benefit of the zero duty, you're not for the raw materials.
And then later you pay too much for the value added.
It also for the added value that not only can we export to China, zero duty, we can also export to US, we can export to Europe, based on that technology.
All right, so let me take this to Chief Chen. Chief Chen, you've been operating in Nigeria. In fact, you have you are known, just a little bit would have said you're a Nigerian, so you understand the operating environment, both in Nigeria and in China. For the number of experience, the number of years you've been operating in both countries, would you say there's a kind of, as Mr. Onofo talked about, the transference of technology, perhaps the learning of lessons, especially on the Nigerian side?
What you say, I work with both sides, China side and also Nigeria side. The first thing I think that we can talk about the technology transfer. Nowadays China has become the #1 production base in the world. So we are more doing a lot of training to bring those young talents, Nigeria, get well training in China and bring them back to Nigeria. So the technology transfer mean not just we put our Chinese high skilled technician managing, and also we are more using this training to build the young talents. And secondly, that the industry partnership between China and Nigeria, and also the ITEC also are helping a lot. So at this moment, we are enjoying a lot of this internet technology to help this management are more smoothly and easily. And of course, Nigeria has a lot of challenges we need to also expect the government to improve.
Right.
So that the partnership between Nigeria and China can be more smoothly.
Professor Liu, let me come to you on the aspect of industrialization. And you've heard from the panel that there needs to be a value addition, particularly on the African continent. Realistically, though, what can China do? What would a realistic China-Nigeria industrial partnership look like in the future?
I think overall, it's really a matter of modernization. And in the modern terms, the modernization is supported by industrialization and urbanization. So they are the twins that push forward for modernization. And for industrialization, you need two basic conditions. One is the infrastructure development. The other is adequate energy supply. So from the Chinese, the experience, the Chinese chief architect of opening and reform, Deng Xiaoping said in a very plain but a very effective way, said if you really wanted to get rich, you got to expand your reach, build your roads, build your ports, build your basic infrastructures that can support the mobility of all resources, be it people, be it goods and services, etc. And then you can also attract more of the farmers to come and to get their skills trained and work on those assembly lines. So this way, it's really a matter of integration. And the other considerations that China continued to open its door by providing not only access, but also tax incentives, land concession incentives, more specifically, for example, for foreign companies to invest in China for the first 3 years is totally a tax exemption.
All right,
and
Prof.
For the next 5 years, is the tax will be only charged with half. So, you know, all this result can really help.
All right, Prof, a lot of incentives there, Mr. Kena. What opportunities do you see in this for Nigeria? And I know that another conversation added to what the Prof, those ones the Prof has listed, is at the China 2 sessions now, they are targeting increasing household consumption. We talk about agricultural potentials. Mr. Onofokun talked about adding value at the fact that, I mean, copper is residued here. What are those opportunities you see that Nigeria can easily, I think we call it the low-hanging fruit, can easily grasp and sustain for a while?
It's self-determination. You have to give your policy a focus. You have to give your policy the right implementation. All these things China is discussing, their policies. If you get zero tariff, what does that mean to you? Challenging you to produce more. How have we been targeting production? When we are ready, we keep our homes in order.
Right, so I want to take a question from the floor. Our first question.
My name is Ayobami Badamosi, a student of History and International Relations, Lagos State University. So my question, considering the enormous loan from the Chinese government to Nigeria, what are the short-term and long-term impacts, and as well as the plans for Nigeria's sustainable development and sovereignty? Thank you.
Right, that question is to you, Professor Liu.
The finance is really the oil for the engine for development. It's a matter, in a subtle analogy, money is like water. So you can really irrigate your crop. You can also flood your house. So it's a matter of how to manage the money over there. Yes, there has been a lot of speculation with regard to the debt traps that may create. And so whether you use money, another analogy, as a hen or as a cork. So the money is there to lay eggs, not to be cooked, not to be embezzled by certain government officers. So that's a very realistic issue. And the other consideration is that what is really the return on this money? from those investors. So, you can't really expect those investors as charity people. And then what would be the tax scheme that can really have a fair share by providing employment, by providing the land concessions, and also by other type of policy support, so that, fairly speaking, it's really how to divide the cake on based on the contribution from different dimensions. So it's a matter of credibility of the business environment, and also on the policy approach, whether money can really flow in, but in the same time can flow out at a fair rate of foreign exchange rate. And then it's really the sovereignty power as how this money can be allocated for productive purpose, not really for consumption or for lavish lifestyle work.
Obviously, a necessary conversation going on here, but let's go for a short break. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion on China-Nigeria Economic Cooperation. Do stay with us.
Welcome back to this special program co-produced with Channels TV and CGTN. Still with us are Professor Liu Bao-Chang, Diana Chen, George Onafowokan, and Ikena Emewu. Ikena, let me come to you here because we've talked about solutions, challenges, and so forth. Let's talk policy for a minute. What key reforms do you think are required, both from China's side and from Nigeria's side, to enable manufacturers, for instance, like George, to transition from exporters to locally, globally competitive co-producers on the continent?
The policy will be essentially what encourages production in Nigeria. Let us put the right incentives on ground to encourage people coming from abroad, whether from China or wherever else, to meet the right conditions, the right environment that would encourage real-time production in this country. Until we do that, we would have spent a lot of time discussing. I throw the challenge back to Nigeria. Let us have a better production environment. Power is key. Transportation is key. We should have transport infrastructure. We should have security in our country to encourage people who are coming here to feel safe. Security in terms of human security. Security in terms of investment security. You don't come here and run into a hitch. Then you start going to maybe London arbitration panel to untangle it, or in Paris. Get the right judicial system that whoever has a problem resolves it here in Nigeria. And again, protect yourself from being plundered by the foreigner who is coming into Nigeria to invest. I never blamed anybody who came to Nigeria, and I heard the person shortchanged Nigeria because the person didn't come with his police or immigration or customs or judicial system. Whatever went wrong with our system. We have to correct them right here. All right,
thank you so much, Mr. Ikena. Let me take this to Chief Chen. So from your years of operating in Nigeria, what do you see that needs to be corrected to right some of those wrongs, to actually accelerate the path or the journey to industrialization?
Nigeria government should spend the education budget to encourage the people to have the good understanding. Secondly, all their policies they have made, when they do the implementation, they should also work with the industry and stakeholder. The professor, he just mentioned the challenge in Africa, in Nigeria, from the power sector, security, and also the policy changing. There's nothing changed in the last 10 years. Because they believe all those challenges, they will move for the next generation, they can solve it. But in fact, the government now, they should take action now. So from what they are doing and Chinese government pushing. And I believe, this partnership significant to help the Nigerian government to see how the Chinese government push something happen from nothing and has significant achievement in the world. Nigerian government should take this kind of lessons from Chinese government.
All right. All right, Chief Chen, let me come to you, Mr. Onofuokon. I know this is a conversation you've had one too many times. You've already said that China for you has served as a motivation to a lot of things you do in your factory. We talk about government, but we also remember the private sector. Are we doing enough from both sides, even when we have the policy for this industrialization? I mean, late last year, we had the approval of our industrial policy, but how much difference really is that going to make?
I think the first thing is that, good thing is that we finally now have an industrial policy. We didn't have one. And now that we have, we're on a roadmap to a journey. And the roadmap is where the importance is. Now, for a manufacturer, policy must be balanced and must be in place, even from what Chief Chen just said. We need to get policies that enable the businesses to do better, not policies that are one-sided or enable one over the other. If I want to bring in a foreign direct investor, and I give all the concessions in the world, and I don't give the same concession to the local player, you put that new player at an advantage over those that have been there. Most likely, your new player will kill the old players that have been there because they've got concessions either on taxes, on land, on certain things that has given them an advantage. Look, for every business, every manufacturer, if you give one over the other an advantage, there's no way that one would not grow more than the other. The whole point of concept of policy is not to put one at a disadvantage, is to grow your sectors simultaneously, even while you're trying to bring in direct investments from China into the economy. So we need to have policies that enable whatever you're trying to do with China, with Nigeria, to work so that those companies, even from China, that have invested in Nigeria today, can survive as well as the new ones.
So, Professor Liu, on that whole question of industrialization, Nigeria's industrial policy, we've just heard Nigeria has launched a new industrial policy for 2025. What would be some of the key priorities required for adequate industrialization for a country such as Nigeria?
To push forward industrialization, actually there are a lot more low-hanging fruits that Nigeria can pick. Because, for example, the technology not only enjoy 15 up to 21 years of protection, so that's what China has been done for some of the offshore technologies. I would recommend that Nigeria can really build a pipeline of global technologies that are low cost or no cost. So to study on that and then to relate to what is exactly needed to boost the industrialization, to boost the manufacture of equipments, and also on the export drive. So be realistic. Do not even to look for the highest shining fruits, but pick the low-hanging fruits. So I think that's a realistic one. And the other is that you need a lot more dynamic actors, be it young entrepreneurs and business leaders. And so China's experience that we do allow a few people, a few regions to get rich first, and then they will be able to build a bigger pie. So, before you consider the policy to divide the pie on an equal basis, but unleash those entrepreneurship and for them to get more connected with technology, with local and global marketplace, and then they will set up a ready example for other younger people, for their community to really come up together. And third is that it's not only China. You really to study the existing and also the diverging need of the global marketplace, so that you are able to get your strategic advantage points within the whole global supply chain. And then the joint venture is something that China has really done a tremendous success. So far, actually, China still is a host of 1.24 million foreign companies within China. So they work together and they now compete together. So do not really feel afraid of competition. Competition can drive those guys to fully exert their potential.
But let's get closing thoughts from all our guests on this deepening this economic tie between Nigeria and China, what both countries need to do. I believe we can start with Chief Chen. Chief Chen, to tell us very briefly your closing thoughts on the matter we've been discussing.
Nigeria and China government still, had so much opportunity to work together under this modern industrialization initiative, to people exchange, to education exchange, to even for this financial and exchange. So sending the people to China have a better, understanding and get good training, and invite more Chinese manufacturer and also entrepreneur and manufacturer to set up their investment entity in Nigeria. It is definitely the fast way to learn from China. So I think what the other gentleman say, Nigeria is a blessed country, and a lot of things can be also well blessed when we really sincerely to work together.
So Liu, find out your closing thoughts on how we've been discussing the take home at this time.
What can be achieved between China and Nigeria in terms of the elevation of our collaboration? One is that we need effective communication with respect. And then such a communication is not only a matter of friendship, it's what can be brought on the table. And the other is that we need consistent policy, and together with the fair and also prompt the judicial enforcement, and also a very fair and equitable enforcement instead of selective enforcement in terms of tax inspections, in terms of the employment structure, etc. And so with that, I think it's really the self-attractiveness for the private sector that is most important. Yes, the institutional engagement and diplomatic collaboration is important, but in the end, it's really the private sector that deal with the groundwork that can benefit more of the employment and also to contribute to economic growth on a sustainable basis.
Ikenna, you have the final word.
Every country ever grew through the support of some other countries of the world, but they will not come and elicit the growth for you until you decide to grow. I want my Nigeria to make up its mind and grow with whatever incentives and support it gets from the partnership with China. To cap it up, China is sincere about giving Nigeria the right support to grow. Mm-hmm. It is left for Nigeria to use it or not use it, but I wish Nigeria will use it.
Thank you all. Indeed, thank you all very much for that lively discussion. Very insightful indeed, but that's all we have time for on this special edition of the program. A big thank you to all our guests, Diana Chen, Chairperson and CEO of Choice International Group, Professor Liu Bao-Chung, Dean, Center for International Business Ethics at the University of International Business and Economics, and George Onafowokan, Managing Director and CEO, Coleman Wires and Cables, and Ikenna Emewu, Editor-in-Chief Africa China Economic Magazine. And thank you as well to our audience of students from the University of Lagos and the Lagos State University, and also members of the Chinese community here in Nigeria. I'm Beatrice Marshall from CGTN.
And I'm Ini John McCoy from Channels Television. And from us here in Lagos, Nigeria, until next time, goodbye.